How many weeks have I started this show saying it was a big week, there's lots to discuss, and assured you that our panel has some great insight to help sort through what's happening all around us. We end this week with a lot of emotion, and in regards to some of what has transpired, maybe we don't have all the answers, but we all have our beliefs and ideas as to why things happen or how things could be better. We need to listen to one another. And we need to learn from one another why we have these differing ideas, all of which is needed to move us forward together. So let's get started with this week's Colorado Inside Out. Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Dyer. Let me introduce you to this week's Insider panel. We start with Patty Calhoun, founder and editor of Westward. David Kopel, research director at the Independence Institute. Laura Aldrete, a building consultant and former director of planning for the City and County of Denver. And Sean Walsh, public affairs consultant with Sean Walsh Consulting. I walked out of a very positive community event in Denver on Wednesday afternoon to see the news on my phone about the shooting of well-known conservative Charlie Kirk at a very public event at the University of Utah. Then I got in my car, turned on the radio, and heard about the shooting at Evergreen High School. Again, a school shooting in Colorado. And as the day went on, the news just got worse. Charlie Kirk died. We learned of the shooter in the Evergreen case also did take his life. And another Colorado community is shaken. Patty, I will start with you. This also happens as Thursday is the anniversary of 9/11.
And of course, we were all thinking about that yesterday when you're watching the ceremonies about remembering 9/11 and how incredibly shaken we all were. And now we still think about terrorism. We think about international terrorism, but the terrorism at home, the homegrown terrorism is what has become so horrifying. You know, a political assassination of Charlie Kirk. And whether you agreed with what Charlie Kirk said or not, you had to agree with the fact that he liked to talk. He liked to talk and he liked to listen. And he was touring campuses. He was set to be in Colorado next week for his talk back so he could talk with students about his views and listen to them, argue with them, and see if they could come to some kind of consensus. So that was horrifying. The school shootings, you know, this is not the first one in Jefferson County. We had started with Columbine, and we've seen so many other shootings here in Colorado since then. And you wonder just what is it going to take to stop the homegrown terrorism?
Yeah. And Charlie Kirk, you were mentioning coming to Colorado. He's supposed to be in Woodland Park, like right this weekend.
Right now for a 3-day Bible session.
And then CSU next week, Thursday.
CSU next week. And South Park just pulled its one of its new season episodes because it's about a Charlie Kirk-like character.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It feels like the declining years of the Roman Republic with escalating violations of the norms that hold civil society together and assassinations. As Patty said, Charlie Kirk was the model of civil, open debate, and his Turning Point USA organization has hundreds of campus chapters, which is why he was hated in part, because there are some on the left who believe they have the monopoly on correct thought, and having that challenged on campus was very upsetting to them. Like the murder of Charlie Kirk, there's a social contagion that involves school shootings. That's what the Columbine perpetrators intended to create and did. And you can talk all about the root causes and gun control and all these kinds of things. And some of those things might be good ideas. But the only way to stop these shootings is to protect schools with as much protection as we give to politicians or jewelry stores. And I think it's Israel had a problem with school shooting perpetrated by Palestinian terrorists, and they shut it down when they started putting armed guards at every school.
Laura.
Well, you know, it would be a sad day to have armed guards at every school with young children, right? If that's our reality, that's a sad statement. I do think the work that the Colorado legislature has done since 2023 in terms of passing more reasonable gun control in terms of safe storage, red flag law, and then school safety and threat assessment programs really geared towards unfortunately what happened at Evergreen. And so the question I ask is, maybe we have all the laws that we need. Maybe we need to be thinking about education for all Colorado residents, or programs to help bring gun locks into every home who has a gun, communicating the challenges of it and the health, as well as continuing to push for access to mental health for everyone.
Sean?
Well, whether it's a school shooting or a political assassination, it's sad that we follow the same predictable pattern. That we go through this kind of emotional cocktail of indignation and sadness and rage. Pundits once again are trying to help explain things for audiences. Politicians are a little too quick, I think, to go to the keyboard or the microphone to kind of push their policy decisions. I so appreciate mental health professionals who are out there working so hard to make sure that some mentally sick person doesn't slip through the cracks and commit a heinous act. Just two things. I think if there's anything we can do, it's not to so much point the blame outward, whether it's guns or the media or social media or knives or school districts. I think it's certainly an opportunity for us to contribute by kind of in the way Charlie Kirk did. I mean, if disagree with him, he was very partisan, he was very provocative, but as Patty points out rightly, he did engage. In fact, he died doing the very thing that he loved to do. So I think the example there is to have the courage to engage and to listen to people and try to understand them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Eerily enough, earlier in the day on Wednesday, I had noticed on X how Charlie Kirk had commented about this next topic that we had already chosen to discuss on the show, and that being how the Weld County Sheriff issued a warning this week that an inmate was going to be released from the Weld County Jail, and as he wrote, is a potential danger to the community. This is another case that is following a Colorado law that says if someone is not competent to stand trial and the competency cannot be restored, that person is not able to stand trial and could be released back into the public. David, there was another case from Arapahoe County where a man, you might recall that video, was on a playground running after a boy. The boy got away, but that man was not competent to stand trial. He is currently being held under mental evaluation. But there is this call, David. Do we need to change this law? Do we have to have another discussion about this?
Well, the law that is the cause of this controversy was something that actually was passed by the legislature in a bipartisan way. There were there were 12 votes against it in the House of Representatives. It was kind of funny to see Governor Polis come out and say absolutely unacceptable. I'm calling on the county attorney and DA to use state law, including Colorado Revised Statutes Title 25 and 27, to ensure he's not at large. Well, that's not a cite to anything specific. Title 25 is this huge thing on public health and on the environment. Title 27 is about behavioral health. He can't even, in this tweet, point to some tool that could be used, except the obvious thing is the tool's already there. We have state mental facilities to take care of people who are criminally insane and can't be restored to competency. The problem is the capacity for that is gigantically underfunded. Currently a waiting list of over 300 people for that. And we could make everybody better off if we would just prioritize funding the things the government should be doing, like the mental health institutions, which are actually one of the few things in the Colorado Constitution that the legislature is ordered to do.
Well, it's a terrifying, any of these stories are terrifying to read, right? Because you feel like you or anyone else could be at risk for serious harm. This is systemic, right? We have, since World War II, there has been deinstitutionalization of mental health systems. Carter tried in the Mental Health Act in 1980. It was immediately repealed by Reagan. We continue to not address a significant issue in our country, and at this point, it's part of our history. And the result of that is the streets are our institution, right? That is where the people with mental health issues go because there is no alternative. And there needs to be some accountability for people's actions, competent or incompetent, or a place to put them if they're incompetent. But there's some onus on our legislatures to get it right, and I am very, very hopeful that it gets fixed in this coming 2026 session.
Sure.
Well, like a lot of legislation, I mean, this was loaded with a lot of good intention, but maybe not a lot of foresight. It was based on an abiding faith that taking somebody incompetent to stand trial in the criminal justice system would then somehow be enrolled in the civil mental health system. And now, of course, Lakewood was another example. There was a doctor that was stabbed there that was then is concerned about being stalked because his attacker is on the street. One of the bill sponsors said, yeah, well, we thought we had the money and then we didn't. So while I applaud the intent, I want to suggest, I think it's time to start looking at some other states like Virginia and Louisiana who have a 60-day General Assembly in even years and a 45-day in odd years. The Texas legislature meets every other year. I think instead of passing more laws, we need to focus on those we've already passed and making sure they are enforced and resourced. The only way to stop these from happening is to limit the span of time that these bills are being passed.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen for a long time. Governor Dick Lamb had said, back to go to Laura's point, had said one of his big regrets was when people were let out on the street and there was no place for them to go, when the government quit providing places for the people with serious mental health issues, sent them to the streets. And he said that was one of his big regrets, that was allowed to happen because we didn't come up with a solution. So you have, across the system, you've got prisons that are overcrowded. You've got jails that are overcrowded with people waiting for their competency evaluations. And then so probably you also have a pressure to let anyone out who might seem like they could maybe make it with the right kind of support, but they're not getting the kind of support they need. And I know that counties are now working on at least being able to come up with some of those support systems to make sure that people have what they need, but they're going to have to also make sure they get it then.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This week, Republican State Senator Barb Kirkmeyer announced that she is running for governor. Colorado has not elected a Republican to the governorship since 2002. Could this be the year? A Magellan poll released earlier this week said 53% of Coloradans think the state is on the wrong track. 47% say that we're headed in the right direction. I should point out that Magellan is a conservative-leaning polling firm here in Colorado. But even so, Laura, do you think Kirkmeyer will be a formidable opponent to either Michael Bennet or Phil Weiser?
I think it's great for our democracy, our state democracy, that there's an actual worthy candidate on the Republican side. I mean, we haven't had a worthy Republican candidate for some time. She has some extreme views, and so she's going to have to come back from her claim to want to succeed from the state of Colorado. She's going to have to thread the needle on her pro-life stance when the people of Colorado have secured reproductive rights for women in our Constitution. Those are going to be hard for her. I was disappointed that the Democrats are showing up so lackluster in this poll. Now, maybe the polls tilted a little bit, but I would have hoped that our Democratic senators and representatives are showing more strongly than what the poll is showing.
Well, the odds are certainly stacked against Senator Kirkmeyer. As you point out, there's only been one Republican governor in the last 50 years. It's definitely rough sledding. She joins now 16 Republicans who have thrown their hat in the ring, all of whom, by the way, have about $100,000 cash on hand. Meanwhile, the Democrats, Michael Bennet has about 1.6. Phil Weiser is raised $2.4 million. An amount, by the way, that was raised in Bennett's case was raised in 4 months. Money's not only her only challenge. I think her eventual opponent, she should be the nominee when she becomes the nominee. Her eventual opponent and the mainstream media are going to hang Donald Trump around her neck like a stone. And not just on issues that affect nationally, but here in Colorado. Moving Space Command to Alabama, which is, it's kind of a done deal. Calling into question mail ballots, which we've been doing in Colorado since the 90s. So these are the issues that are going to be used. She's going to have to be very nimble in how she talks about the president in order not to alienate the base, which is what she's going to need to win.
Okay, fine.
She is one of 34 candidates right now, which is crazy, and 6 have dropped out, but we still have 34 left in. We haven't had a reasonable Republican candidate for a while, and it does look like the Republican Party is going to be much more likely to let her win the primary rather than putting up the roadblocks they put to more reasonable candidates. Of course, we've never had a female governor, female mayor of Denver either, and I think she will be getting a lot of attention. She's a smart woman. She's a good speaker. She's got a lot of good thoughts about the legislature. She is going to have to thread the needle, as Laura said, about the choice issue, the Trump issue. But it's going to be a really interesting race with her in it, at least, because I think people will take the Republicans a lot more seriously than Heidi Ganahl was taken, and we will have a lot of discussion. It's not a big surprise that Bennett and Weiser are getting all the money right now because Kirkmeyer just jumped into the ring this week. Bad timing for her through no fault of her own, that it was right after Broncos, right before shootings.
Mm-hmm. David.
I think she'll be a very strong candidate. She's been Weld County Commissioner. She's in the Senate on the Joint Budget Committee, which is the 6 of each part total who are on that committee are absolutely hardworking, very intelligent, and highly respected by their peers. And she also served in Bill Owens' cabinet as the head of the Department of Local Affairs. There's no question that Trump is a gigantic headwind for Republicans in Colorado, but you got to think look at what's happened to this state under Polis. We used to have one of the lowest crime rates in the country. Now we've got one of the worst. The amount of taxation called fees and imposed without a vote of the people is just enormous. We're super heavily regulated, and so I think Colorado has done better typically under mixed government than uniparty control. And she is not a hardcore right-wing Republican. She's a moderate conservative. And this is maybe our last chance to save the state.
Okay. This weekend, the Denver Broncos play in Indianapolis in a stadium that has a retractable roof, which is something that the Broncos owners would love in a new stadium. And this week, the team said it is eyes leaving Mile High Stadium to build a new stadium at the historic Burnham Yard. Sean, the team will not be moving out of Denver, so that is a big plus for Denver.
Indeed, we don't have to start practicing saying Lone Tree Broncos or Aurora Broncos. There's certainly a lot of excitement about the issue, but if we're being honest, was it that much of a surprise? I mean, the Denver Post did run a front page story back in June about the purchase of several all cash purchases of parcels around Burnham Yard to the tune of about $150 million. Again, no debt. Underreported, I think, is the fact that unlike in 1998, this will be paid for by the Penner family, by the Denver Broncos, unlike in 1998, where we the voters came up with 75% of the money and Pat Bowling came up with the other 25. On the very same day, of note, on the very same day that announcement was made, Councilwoman Jamie Torres did send an email to her constituents making sure that they were aware that she would be very vigilant about making sure that the community and the stakeholders were involved in that process. There's going to be a lot of excitement about it, but there are a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of stakeholdering that they're going to have to do to earn the respect and not pick any unnecessary fights in the area.
Okay, Patty.
They have a pretty good plan they can follow, which is the Ball Arena plan and everything they did with the communities there. I guess we're really lucky we're not calling them the Bentonville Broncos, given the involvement with Walmart and Kroenke and the Penner family. What is fascinating, and I do want to correct you, it was Business Den that broke the story about all the land purchases, little scrappy group, business paper, but they did a great job in grabbing all that. And so it wasn't a surprise that they really were, the Broncos were smart about making the moves, buying the land they need. They can get the 58 acres easily from the Colorado Department of Transportation, which bought Burnham Yard in 2021, thinking they'd use it for an I-25 interchange, and then discovered it wouldn't work. It's great to have it stay in Denver. You do wonder what the city will do with the 80 acres they get back in 2030 when the other stadium is done with. But it's great news for Denver that this is going to be at the heart of it. We'll see if the other stadium we're getting for women's soccer shows up too, but it's good to have action downtown.
It is. Okay, David?
It's just outstanding. Independence Institute led the fight against the ballot issue to give the Broncos a welfare stadium in 1998, and now they've finally grown up and are, no longer the kids living in the basement at the parents' expense. They're going to buy their own house on their own, which is great. It sounds like an excellent plan. They'll have more food facilities, more variety in the seating, and they're going to still be the Denver Broncos. The Dallas Cowboys don't play in Dallas. The San Francisco Giants don't play in San Francisco. The Cleveland Browns are leaving Cleveland. So it's great that the Denver Broncos are still going to be the Denver. And with a retractable roof, that's going to be excellent too. Includes giving the possibility of occasionally hosting big events like a Super Bowl or a college football championship.
Mm-hmm. Laura?
Well, they have grown up, the Broncos owners, but recall that there is a bond initiative that'll come before the voters, and there's a significant amount of infrastructure that the citizens are being asked to pay for that happen to be really next to and adjacent and part of this redevelopment. And I think it's okay, right? We're all in on this, right? We need to be all in on this. As the former planning director, I think there's at least three things that are really important. One is that needs to have really good multiple modes of transportation. I think it needs the Front Range rail, passenger rail needs to have a stop there. Light rail will continue to serve the community, but it also can serve the stadium. I think the community benefits agreement really needs to be meaningful. And then third is that I hope it's not just a stadium. It needs to be, in addition to being an entertainment district, and it needs to be usable 24/7. That needs to have activity 24/7, or at least 18 hours a day, right? To get all the tax benefit out of it that we can. So
we have so many entertainment areas being discussed, also along the River Mile. There are not going to be enough people who need to be entertained. Yeah. That's the biggest concern.
Okay. Now let's go down the line and have each insider express their highs and lows of the week. And I do think that we have tackled a lot of the low points of the week, but perhaps there are some others to share, and then we will end with some of the silver linings. Patty, I'll start with you.
I will just, capping off the summer, the all-weather airport has seemed to have had more delays, more problems with thunderstorms or whatever all summer long. I don't know about everyone else, but you always get calls from relatives stuck on the tarmac who might be showing up at your house. So good, let's have a happier fall.
That's right.
Well, when we think about the poisonous political climate that's been created, at the top of the list for who's helped create that is a fraudulent group that calls itself the Southern Poverty Law Center, and they put out these hate maps of supposedly evil organizations. They previously inspired assassinations against other organizations. And the day before yesterday, they put out their new hate map and called that included Turning Point USA on it. And so they got their wish again.
Okay, Laura.
I would assume their wish was not to have him assassinated.
Well, they've
nobody would want that, and certainly not a group.
Oh boy, sure, you can find a lot of people on the internet who are awfully happy about it.
Yeah, well, not the Southern Poverty Institute. And going down that line, I think honoring Charlie Kirk with flags at half-staff is inappropriate. I think he is controversial enough. I think this is a week where we are remembering 9/11. That alone should bring the flags to half-staff in a moment where we are also dealing with school shootings again. And Mr. Kirk did disparage a large percentage of the population of Americans, and I don't think it's worthy.
Okay, John.
The Manitou Springs City Council last month referred a question to the ballot that will triple the amusement tax on the Pikes Peak Cog Railway and 4 other attractions to make up for a $4.6 million budget hole created by tanking marijuana sales. This triple tax, I think, is bad for the local tourism economy, and I hope Manitou Springs voters turn it down.
Okay, all right. Now something positive, Patty.
For those who do want entertainment and don't want to wait for the Broncos' new stadium, great festival in 5 Points on Saturday, a new one, the High Points Festival. Also mariachis at Levitt Pavilion. Youth on Record is having a youth concert on Sunday. All great reasons to go out.
All right, thank you.
As Charlie Kirk tweeted on June 17th, when things are moving fast and people are losing their minds, it's important to stay grounded. Turn off your phone, read scripture, spend time with friends, and remember internet fury is not real life.
Okay, Laura?
Just want to compliment the state and the city and the private sector of the Penners coming together to get that deal done. And I travel and work in other states and cities, and collaboration is a rare word. And I just want to compliment our state and our city for continuing to find that space. I think we have a history of it, and I hope we keep doing it.
Good, all right.
With 40 wins, the Colorado Rockies are 1 win away from tying the record of the worst that was set by the Chicago White Sox last year, being the worst ever baseball team. We know they're going to be the worst this season, but 2 wins out of the next 16 will make them not the worst. So a potential silver lining coming up if the Broncos can eke out 2 more victories.
Okay, all right. I just want to end with encouragement to recognize the greatness that is out here. Yes, I have asked all the panelists to come up with at least one positive thing to end this show at the end of this difficult week. And I ask you all to do the same. For me, I am very grateful for 2 incredible people in my life during this significant week, my husband and my mom. My husband and I had our 25th wedding anniversary Tuesday, and my mom turned 92 on Thursday. They're my 2 best friends, and I love them to death. They mean the world to me. And, you know, with all the stuff going on right now, and even the families in Evergreen, there is so much good. You have each other. We've got to stop with all the noise and all the distractions and just realize who we have around us and what we have around us and just be grateful. I know it's hard to say that this week, but the good is out there. Thank you, panel, for joining us this week. It was a tough week. Thank you for watching and being engaged, watching or listening to our podcast. I'm Kyle Dyer. I will see you next week here on PBS 12.
PBS 12 believes in the power of original, local programming. Help us bring more shows, like the one you just watched, by donating at pbs12.org/program support today.